Professor John's Field Notes on Human Folly. Helmets, Kings, and Black Widows, Lessons in Eastern Governance. As documented in previous dispatches, Professor John MacLeod was actively conducting field research for his forthcoming treatise, The Oppressed Women of the East, a project requiring a rigorous, highly immersive methodology. On this particular occasion, academic duty demanded he travel from Bangkok to the coastal town of Hua Hin. Soi 80, Hua Hin. It was a quiet evening on Soi 80. Quiet, of course, is a relative term in Thailand, where silence routinely includes barking dogs, buzzing scooters, distant karaoke, and the metallic coughing of modified motorbikes racing toward nowhere in particular. Soi 80 lies just outside central Hua Hin and consists of two narrow parallel lanes, one largely residential, the other dominated by more than 50 establishments catering to the social needs of mature, far-ong gentlemen from colder, lonelier climes. The architecture confuses newcomers because the buildings stand back to back, like rows of playing cards propped together by a builder with a fondness for labyrinths and heat stroke. With few rear windows and minimal airflow, the tropical heat settles inside like a wet blanket. These bars offered a milder atmosphere than the frantic nightlife of Bintibut in central Hua Hin. Following the 2014 military coup, closing times grew strict. John still recalled armored vehicles crawling down the Soi while soldiers ensured shutters were lowered. Yet Thailand possesses a genius for unofficial continuity. Behind those lowered shutters, laughter continued, beers clinked softly, and aging European men debated football, divorce settlements, blood pressure medication, and young women with the solemnity of medieval theologians debating angels. The soldiers themselves seemed largely uninterested in enforcing public morality. Most looked bored, hot, and faintly embarrassed by the exercise, standing guard with assault rifles while a nearby karaoke machine brutally executed an ancient Eagles song. Officially, prostitution was illegal. Unofficially, the arrangement resembled a delicate Southeast Asian balancing act where everyone understood the rules precisely because nobody stated them. John suspected the local police supplemented their modest salaries through informal taxation, acting less like mobsters and more like weary municipal gardeners collecting donations for a temple roof. A slight digression, seatbelts and sovereign safety. Indeed, the police in Hua Hin rarely appeared threatening. They drifted about on scooters in civilian clothes, smiling amiably while collecting modest fines from helmetless motorcyclists and unbuckled drivers. John had experienced a similar masterclass in civil compliance in Russia, where a taxi driver once instructed him to drape his seatbelt across his chest without actually buckling it into the clasp. Police seatbelt, the driver explained proudly. Everybody happy. From this, John deduced that many ordinary Russians and Thais regarded traffic regulations less as life-saving precautions and more as creative, state-sponsored fundraising schemes. By extension, any regulation handed down from above was instinctively viewed not as a public benefit, but as a toll collected to keep the administrative elite and their lackeys in fine silk and vodka. Open political debate was, naturally, off the table. In Thailand, strict lèse-majesté laws ensured that even a misplaced joke about the royal pet could land a citizen in a cell. Russia, never to be outdone in state hospitality, preferred sending dissidents to Siberian gulags, poisoning their tea, or arranging tragic falls from high-altitude windows. Unfortunately for the citizenry, road safety statistics stubbornly refused to play along. Thai roads remained among the deadliest on earth, particularly for motorcyclists, while violent crime quietly surged in both nations, unbothered by ruling elites comfortably insulated from the daily carnage. Case in point, Lola's brother had been killed in a motorcycle accident, leaving her and her mother to raise his young daughter, Fern. Had he worn a helmet, things might have ended differently. And had the state spent less time inventing fine collection schemes and more time distributing social welfare, a fatherless child might have received a genuine safety net. The pension plan. Then again, perhaps John was being unfair to Russia. By 2026, the Kremlin had proven remarkably generous with its social welfare, at least for the millions of grieving wives whose husbands were ground up in the special military operation in Ukraine. Calling it an illegal invasion or a war remained, of course, an offense punishable by a quiet decade in prison. In Russian media, the enterprising women who hastily married soldiers right before deployment, only to cash in on hefty state compensation payouts when the men inevitably perished, were colloquially dubbed black widows. The term drew a fitting parallel to the predatory spider, highlighting the widespread suspicion that these nuptials were driven less by eternal devotion and more by lucrative death money. In short, the meat grinder in Ukraine had become a sensational hit among opportunistic brides. Women were now practically queuing up to marry the few remaining eligible young men being shipped to the front line, quietly praying for their swift return in a heavy-duty black body bag so they could settle down to enjoy a comfortable life on a state-funded pension.